So the idiots on Fox News are going to go after Joe Biden for his very moderate plans on infrastructure and taxes and some other stuff. Look at the terrible arguments they use.
Dana Perino, I think what I was getting at there is that Republicans are the only one pumping the brakes here on Democrats expanding government. Every time they get power, they want to just spend more and grow the government more and more and more. So we're the only ones stopping them. If we weren't here, it would just be a full socialist takeover.
And I think this is actually a more useful direction that this conversation is going beyond just the eye-popping numbers that he wants to spend. It's how does he want to spend it? Why? It's like a whole different shift of having government be in control of even more things. How has that worked out in the past? So you look at Europe in terms of innovation and economic growth. One of the reasons that their militaries are so basically weak and hobbled is because they have all of these entitlements that they continue to build, to grow, and that spending never stops. It's also a problem here. You know, the rest of our budget gets squeezed because we never want to deal with those programs like Social Security and Medicare.
The rest of our budget gets squeezed because we don't want to cut Social Security and Medicare. She picked the two most popular U.S. government programs to say, these really popular things are getting in the way of all this unpopular shit I want to do, like grow the military even more. I mean, it's amazing, but I also love it. I love it because at least it's honest. At least it's straightforward. I mean, look at her argument. She's like, well, how does Biden want to spend this money? I don't know why you're asking it as a question. We know he released the plans. He wants, you know, universal pre-K, universal child care. He wants job creation. In fact, here, I think I have, yes, I have an article up that'll tell you some of the specifics. Again, I don't know why you're phrasing this as a question that we don't know the answer to. He wants to spend $621 billion on transportation stuff, rebuilding our infrastructure, roads, bridges, railways, so on and so forth. He wants to spend $400 billion for home care services. So workforce for people at home, caregiving for aging and disabled Americans. He wants $300 billion to reinvigorate U.S. manufacturing. He wants $213 billion for housing. Again, this is all checkable. He wants $180 billion for research and development to upgrade our technologies, for example, and make us a leader when it comes to innovation and climate science and things of that nature. He wants $111 billion to upgrade our waterways and get rid of lead pipes, for example. He wants $100 billion for our schools. Digital infrastructure, $100 billion spent. Workforce development, that's job training, $100 billion for that. Veterans, hospitals, and federal buildings, $18 billion. And then the way he pays for it, corporate tax hike, you know, an increase on the top marginal rate. Guys, I mean, all this stuff's out there. She's posing it as if it's like a question. She's like, how does Biden want to spend this money? He wants to spend it on things that are colossally popular. Again, more on that. 64% support his child care proposal. 63% support his universal pre-K proposal. 59% support free community college. She's like, how does he want to spend this money? He wants to spend it on all these popular things, and you're not going into the details because you fucking know it's popular. And her argument is, well, look at Europe. One of the reasons their militaries are so weak is their entitlements, and the spending never stops on that. That's awesome! I want that! I want to cut back on our military spending. I want to use that money for the people. Who doesn't want to do that? Most Americans agree with me on that. Guys, we spend more than at least the next 10 biggest nations combined on the military. And most of them are our allies. What are we doing? Endless war is something that you think is money better spent? But the answer is yes, because she says Social Security, Medicare get in the way. Get in the way of what? Spending more than the next 30 biggest nations combined? Get in the way of what? What are you talking about? But she admits it. Cut Social Security and Medicare. And don't you dare be like Europe, where they self-report being a lot happier and where they beat us empirically on a lot of these areas, like healthcare, for example. So she just admits it. And I love the Jesse Waters part where he's like, if it wasn't for the Republicans, there'd be a full socialist takeover. I wish, dipshit. I wish the Democrats were at least social democratic. Only a handful of them are. But I wish they were social democratic. And God forbid, there's not a single elected politician at the national level in the country who says workers should own the means of production and distribution. That would be actually socialist. So he's just wrong. Like, of course, the Democrats are not for a full socialist takeover. But if we lived in the world where Democrats were for these more bold policies across the board, then the Republicans would lose a lot more, just like what happened with FDR. He won 4 times because he actually delivered on some basic social democratic stuff.